That's how it felt the moment I walked back into Crestwood. 7 years away. 7 years of building a life far from this town, far from him. But today I came back. Not for him. Not for closure. I came back because sometimes you need to stand in the fire to prove to yourself it doesn't burn anymore. The chapel smelled exactly like I remembered. Lilies drowning in candle wax, thick enough to choke on. The same cracked tiles underfoot. The same heavy silence. But what hit hardest was seeing them. My mother, Martha Walker, sitting 3 rows ahead, smaller than I remembered. Hollow. Quiet. Like a ghost inside her own body. And right beside her, Emily Walker, my older sister. The only person in this family who ever fought for me, even when it cost her everything. Her eyes found mine the second I stepped in. There was no judgment there, no pity, just a quiet kind of relief. But the rest of them? The Carter boys were already waiting. My father's prized nephews, Mason Carter, Logan Carter, Ethan Carter, Ryan Carter. 4 perfect sons he never had, but always wished he did. Mason sat like a king, firstborn, successful, untouched by scandal. His cold eyes scanned me like I was dirt on polished shoes. Logan barely looked up, too busy playing with his cufflinks. That was always his move. Pretend I'm invisible, until he found a way to cut deeper. Ethan leaned in, whispered something to Ryan. Both of them let out the kind of laugh that makes your skin crawl. I knew what they thought of me. The black sheep, the outsider, the mistake that never should have come home. But I didn't flinch. I walked straight past them, past the stares, the whispers, the pity that stung more than hate. And when I saw the casket at the front of the room, dark cherry wood, gold letters spelling out Richard Walker, I felt absolutely nothing. No love, no hate, just hollow. Because a long time ago I stopped needing him to love me. But what I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that today wouldn't end like every other day in this family. Today he left behind a letter, and that letter would destroy everything. The chapel was suffocating, not just from the heavy scent of melting candles or the quiet hum of the organ, but from the weight of eyes that never really saw me. Every seat was filled. Old neighbors, former co-workers, church friends who only knew Richard Walker as the man in a crisp suit, shaking hands, smiling like he wasn't a stranger in his own home. But I knew better. And so did the Carter boys, my father's real family. They didn't sit near my mother. They didn't sit near Emily. No. Mason Carter and his brothers claimed the front rows like royalty. That's what they were in this town. The perfect sons he never had. The heirs to a legacy I was never invited into. Mason sat at the edge of the pew, tailored black suit, wedding band tan line from his 3rd divorce, face carved from stone. The way he looked at me wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was empty, like I didn't even exist. Logan Carter leaned back lazily, twirling a pen between his fingers, calculating, detached, probably drafting his next real estate deal in his head. Ethan Carter nudged Ryan again, whispered something I couldn't hear but didn't need to. They were laughing at me, like they always had. I grew up hearing it. Richard Walker's mistake. The daughter that ruined him. Just like her mother, soft, emotional, loud where she should be quiet. Funny thing is, they were right. I was loud, but not anymore. Not here, not today. I sat down beside Emily. Her hand grazed mine, a quiet anchor in the storm. You okay? She whispered. I didn't answer. Because how do you explain to someone that sitting in your father's funeral feels a lot like drowning, except nobody notices you slipping beneath the surface? And then it happened. Father Brooks, the old family priest, stepped up to the pulpit. He'd baptized me here once. He'd married my parents here once. Now he was about to bury my father. His voice echoed calm, steady, familiar. Richard Walker was a man of principle, he began. I tuned him out. Those words didn't belong to the man I knew. The man who never once said I'm proud of you. The man who missed every birthday. The man who let his silence speak louder than any apology. Until Father Brooks paused, and everything inside me went still. There is one final message. A ripple moved through the room. Heads turned. Chairs shifted. Even Mason's perfect posture faltered. Father Brooks lifted a yellowed envelope. Edges frayed. Paper soft from being handled too many times. A letter, written by Richard Walker. He requested it be read aloud here today. My stomach dropped. My pulse roared in my ears. No one, not Emily, not Martha, not the Carters, had mentioned a letter. And if my father left words behind, they wouldn't be for me, would they? But something inside me, small, bruised, stubborn, stayed frozen in place. Because maybe, just maybe, this was the moment I had waited for my whole life. Not to be loved, not to be wanted, but to be seen. Even if it shattered me, even if it hurt worse than the silence, I braced myself and waited. Because whatever was in that letter, it was going to change everything. Silence. The kind that pulls all the air out of the room. Father Brooks stood at the pulpit, the letter in his shaking hands. And for a second, even the sound of rain against the stained glass window seemed to stop. The Carter boys sat frozen. Mason stiffened like he was bracing for praise. Logan narrowed his eyes, calculating. Ethan whispered something sharp to Ryan, who let out a quiet snort like this was just another performance. They thought they knew what was coming. I thought I did too. More words about legacy, about honor, about how proud Richard Walker was of the sons he wished he had. But when Father Brooks unfolded that letter, the first words cut through me like glass. To my family, my regrets, and the daughter I never had the courage to love, Rachel Walker. I swear the world tilted. Martha gasped. Emily's hand clutched mine so tight I thought it might bruise. But the Carter boys? Their faces cracked. For the first time, Mason looked unsure. Logan went pale. Ethan stopped smirking. Ryan stopped breathing. I sat completely still. Every nerve in my body screamed to leave, to run, to disappear the way I had always learned to survive. But I didn't move, because I had waited my whole life to be seen, even if it destroyed me. Father Brooks cleared his throat. And then he kept reading. Rachel, if you are here, then I am already surprised. I did not expect you would come, and if you didn't, I would understand. I earned your absence. My throat clenched. The world blurred. This wasn't a eulogy. This was a confession. A man at the end of his life finally saying the thing he should have said when it mattered. You were always the mirror I didn't want to face. You reminded me of the parts of myself I spent a lifetime trying to bury. Sensitivity, defiance, the need to be understood instead of obeyed. I bit my cheek so hard I tasted blood, but still, no tears came. This wasn't sadness. This wasn't relief. This was grief for what never was. To Mason, Logan, Ethan, Ryan, you believed you knew me. You believed my silence was approval. It was not. It was fear. I let you shape the story of this family because I didn't have the courage to tell the truth. And for that, I am sorry. The room was dead silent. No coughing, no shuffling, not even the sound of rain. Just stillness. The Carter boys looked like stone statues, faces drained of color. Mason clenched his jaw. Logan ran a hand through his hair, restless. Ethan stared down at his hands like they might disappear. Ryan shifted in his seat, swallowing hard. But me? I just sat there, breathing, living, existing, for the first time without shame. And then the final line came, the line I never thought I would hear, the line I had given up hoping for years ago. To my daughter, Rachel Walker, I loved you, I always did. I just never knew how to show it, but I see you now. That was it. That was everything. The story I had been told my whole life, that I was unwanted, unloved, invisible, broke apart in one moment. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel empty. I felt free. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Not even the Carter boys. The chapel felt like it had been cracked open. Like every lie that built this family had shattered right there on that polished wooden floor. All my life, I thought silence was the enemy. But this silence? This wasn't the kind that crushed you. This was the kind that set you free. I looked around the room, really looked. Mason Carter, the golden boy, wasn't golden anymore. His hands were fisted tight on his knees, his face drained of power. The man who thought legacy was untouchable had just been stripped of it by a dead man's words. Logan Carter wouldn't meet my eyes. His confidence gone. The mask had fallen. Ethan Carter looked lost. A boy playing a man's game who'd just realized the board was gone. And Ryan Carter? He looked small, like the little kid I remembered. The one who used to follow me around before they taught him to hate me. My mother, Martha Walker, sat frozen. Tears lined her eyes, not loud sobs, but quiet grief. The grief of truth. The grief of too late apologies. But it was Emily Walker, my sister, who moved first. She reached for my hand again, not for comfort, but for strength. I squeezed back. This time I didn't need saving. When the service ended, people scattered like broken glass. No small talk. No fake condolences. No more pretending. Father Brooks walked past me, his eyes soft. No words, just a slight nod. A thank you for staying. A thank you for surviving. I stayed behind, alone, standing in front of my father's casket. Not because I needed closure, not because I forgave him yet, but because I needed to say something out loud. If only for myself. I'm not invisible anymore, I whispered. Not to him, not to them, not to me. Behind me, footsteps. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. Mason Carter. His voice, rougher now. You think that letter changes anything? I turned. Slow, calm, stronger than I had ever been in this place. No, I said, it doesn't change the past, but it changes me. And with that, I walked away. Past Mason, past Logan, past Ethan, past Ryan, past every scar this family ever carved into me. Outside, the sky had cleared. The rain was gone, but the ground was wet, like proof that storms don't last forever. Emily caught up with me in the parking lot. You okay? She asked. I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years. I will be. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just stood there, side by side. Because sometimes healing doesn't need words. It just needs space. And for the first time, I had found mine. That night I stood in my old bedroom. The walls were bare now. Empty shelves, empty drawers. But not me. Not anymore. Before I left for the airport, I reached into my suitcase. There it was. An old photograph I had packed without thinking. Me, 6 years old, holding up a messy finger painting. Colors everywhere. Chaos. In the background, blurry, my father. Expressionless. Unreachable. But now I looked at that photo differently. Maybe he was proud. Maybe he didn't know how to say it. Maybe I'll never know. And that's okay. Because forgiveness isn't about waiting for someone else to change. It's about deciding you're done carrying their weight. And I was done. At the cemetery, before I left Crestwood for good, I stood at my father's grave. No anger, no tears, just truth. I forgive you, I whispered. Not because he deserved it, but because I did. I turned to leave. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. Chicago waited for me. My life waited for me. A life I built. A life where I didn't have to disappear to feel safe. A life where I was never invisible again. Because sometimes, the dead say what the living never could. And when they do, it either breaks you or it sets you free. And I chose freedom. That's my story. If you've ever felt unwanted, if you've ever believed someone else's silence defined your worth, I hope this story reminds you, you are not invisible, not to the world, and definitely not to yourself. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own, please don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to this channel for more real stories like this. Your story matters, and I'd love for you to be here when we tell the next one.